Religious institutions never like people finding the answers to their own questions. They do not like it when people challenge their authority by expressing new ideas through science, art, and philosophy. And that's exactly what happened during the period of Renaissance, which lasted from the 40th century to the 70th century. It was the rebirth of Europe. In the Middle Ages, European countries forged new identities for themselves. They were no longer part of the fallen Roman Empire. They moved away from the lost glory of the Roman Empire and reconnected with their ancient ethnic and cultural roots. In the Middle Ages, Roman Catholic Church defined itself as the spiritual protector of the Christian believers. But many Christians of the Middle Ages started questioning the logic and the rules of religious institutions. Europeans were asking questions that Roman Catholic Church was unwilling to answer, or let us say incapable of answering. During the Renaissance, bright minds tried to find answers or reasons for human existence based on logic rather than faith. They engaged themselves in experimentation to unravel the mysteries of nature. A painter like Leonardo Da Vinci did not restrict himself to just painting. He studied the anatomy of the human body. Bright minds like Galileo presented the study which showed that the Earth was not the center of the universe and that the Earth and other planets revolve around the Sun. He built a telescope which proved his conclusions. However, discoveries of Galileo were against the Church and its belief that the Earth was the center of the universe. Galileo faced many problems because of that. But how could he believe the Church when the telescope had shown him the truth? Before Renaissance, for centuries, Church did not allow people to study subjects like the anatomy of the human body, astronomy, and many other subjects. They always tried to project Church and God as an answer to all the questions and mysteries. Learning new things in science, literature, and philosophy was limited to a few privileged people until 1400 AD. In 1440, Johannes Gutenberg invented the Gutenberg printing press, which could print books quickly, and the spread of knowledge became faster than ever before. It was just like the invention of the internet. Just how today we have access to a vast ocean of knowledge because of the internet, the invention of printing press gave ordinary people of Europe an opportunity to access knowledge, an opportunity to find answers, and an opportunity to develop new ideas. The bold new ideas were traveling across the Europe faster than the Church could silence them. People started questioning the corrupt practices happening in the name of religion and God. Many denied the hierarchy of power and questioned the political games being played by religious institutions to maintain or gain control. This was the birth of humanism against the old beliefs and rules. The very humanism that inspired the art of Michelangelo, the science of Vesalius, and the literature of Shakespeare and Cervantes. But this change did not come easily. It brought many bloody massacres and conflict with it. People were executed for asking questions that violated the religious teachings. But the Renaissance was the period when people showed their willingness to die for their right to think freely. Let's get into the details of life in medieval Europe, the political setup, art, inventions, and the new ideas that changed the course of human history. Beautiful and powerful cities and states. In medieval Europe, cities were important, but they were under the authority of the countries. Italy was divided into powerful cities and pope-ruled states. The papal state located in Rome was officially the state of church. All the territories of the papal states were under the direct control of the pope. It looked like a church hierarchy ruling the spiritual land, but in truth, papal state was a powerful administrator, determined to expand its political influence. Cities like Florence and Venice were republics that were controlled by nobles and budding capitalists. Naples was a kingdom and Milan was a Dutch territory. Collectively, all cities were part of Italy. But independently, all these cities had influence over trade, commerce, art, and power in Europe. For most countries like France, Spain, Belgium, and the Netherlands, the Renaissance was mostly about trade and commerce, which made them rich. In England, Renaissance started around 1520 and flourished only under Queen Elizabeth I. The life of European people during the Renaissance was full of art, music, and literature, but there also existed social inequality. Approximately 1/4 of the population was poor and slavery was rampant. During the Renaissance, wealth distribution changed with the rise of banking systems. The bankers were not aristocrats, nobles, or kings, but they acquired great wealth, which means the wealth was being redistributed throughout Europe. The nobles and kings relied heavily on bank loans to fund their wars and lifestyles. By the end of the 50th century, many nobles and kings had defaulted on their loans and had lost their wealth to commercial powers like banks. All the bankers, traders and merchants were staunch supporters of capitalism, which made Europe prosperous. A new hierarchy of power and authority emerged. This is the irony of our world. When we deny the old hierarchy of power, we immediately build the new one. Traders and small businessmen were beneath the bankers in this new social and economic hierarchy. At the top were the traditional noble and merchant class. England was still a rural nation during the Renaissance, but London became one of Europe's most populated cities and powerful trade centers. Germany lagged behind in urban growth, but showed great progress in fields like metallurgy, mining, textiles and banking. In addition, the invention of Gutenberg's printing press took place in Germany in 1440. Germans made printing a commercial enterprise and German printers dominated the printing business. Feudalism was the dominant social system in medieval Europe, in which the noble class held land from the crown in exchange for their military services. Farmers were only allowed to live and work on those lands. But during the Renaissance, capitalism was on the rise and it supports the right to private property. As a result, feudalism started declining. With money, wealth and prosperity, Europe's focus shifted from mere survival to cultural evolution. Wealthy Europeans emerged as art patrons to support a thriving pool of talent. They funded many artists and scientists. For architects like Filippo Brunelleschi, the designs of classical Rome inspired his own work. He designed the Florence Cathedral of Europe with its 8-sided dome. People regarded it as the masterpiece of the new engineering world. Filippo altered the way in which art was created. His paintings used linear perspective, which allowed him to paint from the viewer's point of view. Filippo Brunelleschi is considered one of the founding fathers of the architectural Renaissance. Three-dimensional paintings, architectural designs inspired by ancient Rome and Greek, and paintings by Michelangelo which showed the level of physical realism are some of the artistic milestones of the Renaissance. The lockets you see today with photos of your loved ones inside them were first invented in England during the Renaissance. Religion and artists worked together as far as the art and architecture was concerned. Pope Julius II, the warrior pope, commissioned Michelangelo to paint the Sistine Chapel ceiling, Raphael to paint the Stanza di Raffaello in Vatican, and Bramante to begin the new St. Peter's Basilica. The first book in any of the Romance languages was written during the Renaissance by Antonio di Nebrija. Romance languages are modern languages that evolved from vulgar Latin, such as Spanish, Portuguese, French, Italian, and Romanian. Religious institutions also made some changes in their religious practices. They translated their prayer into many local languages so that everyone could read and sing them. Another literary milestone was achieved in 1547 when Cervantes published a novel, which is regarded as the first modern European novel. During the Renaissance, literary work of William Shakespeare and books like 95 Theses by Martin Luther also made their mark, and with the help of Gutenberg printing press, it became easy to print and sell books. As was the case with so many of the Renaissance arts, even music took sides in religion. For Catholics, the Latin motet was the preferred style of sacred music. But Protestants created different music. The Chason, a secular song, became one of the most popular musical forms of the 60th century. Music in England, particularly the music style of madrigal, was one of the areas in which influence of Renaissance was visible.
Now is the month of May, when merry lads are playing. Now is the month of May, when merry lads are playing.
Madrigal music style had its roots in Italy and was a popular form of music throughout Europe. Religion, politics, secularism and disasters. Revolution comes with consequences. Europe witnessed political and religious unrest during the Renaissance. People started questioning the corrupt practices of popes and bishops. Many denied the hierarchy of power and protested against the dirty politics that was being played in the church for gaining or maintaining authority. Many kings, nobles and administrators tried to introduce secular policies so that both believers and non-believers could live in peace. Even the church tried to be part of secular politics, but ended up executing Protestants who questioned the church on its politics and theology. Everyone, every state, every city, every noble and king and religious institution wanted to maintain their authority as well as expand their dominion. The Catholic Church was busy waging war against people who questioned its authority. Other European countries like France, Spain and England wanted to plunder the wealthy cities and states, and by the end of the 50th century, Europe was torn by the war. The 100 Years' War was a long struggle between England and France over the succession to the French throne. It lasted from 1337 to 1453, and who can forget the brave hearts like Joan of Arc, considered the heroine of France. At the age of 18, she led the French army to victory over the English at Orleans. Joan was later captured and burned by the English and their French collaborators. For her bravery, Roman Catholic Church declared her a Roman Catholic saint. Europe also suffered the Black Death, also known as the Great Plague, the medieval version of COVID pandemic, only worse. It was so devastating that it is estimated to have killed 30 to 60% of Europe's population in the 40th century. Another notable war from the Renaissance era was the War of Three Henrys. It was the 8th and final conflict in the series of civil wars in France known as the Wars of Religion. This three-way war was fought between King Henry III of France, Henry of Lorraine, leader of Catholic League, and King Henry of Navarre, the leader of Protestants. The war lasted from 1587 to 1589. In the end, the leader of Protestants, King Henry of Navarre, became victorious while the other two Henrys died in battle. Henry of Navarre became Henry IV of France. He signed the Edict of Nantes, an official order from the king and one of the first attempts to encourage religious tolerance. It granted religious peace to both Catholics and Protestants in France. However, deep division between Catholics and Protestants could not be erased, and in 1610 Henry was assassinated by a Roman Catholic. See, we humans are always in constant turmoil because of our lust for authority. Those in authority fight to maintain it, and those out of authority fight to snatch it. The world's authority and world's brutal force go hand in hand under the lash of fear and pay their daily taxes to the ignorance in wars and bloods and tears. This human behavior did not change even during the beautiful art period like the Renaissance. People who wanted power fought battles to maintain or gain it, but the art enlightened those who enjoyed it. To economically support my efforts to create well-researched videos, you can either buy books from my affiliate links or send me super thanks. I thank my donors and Patreons for making it easy for me to create well-researched videos. Smash that like button if you find my content useful. That's enough for today. See you in the next video.